Welcome back to Spotlight, where we highlight the University of Central Arkansas's College of Fine Arts and Communication. I'm Donna Lampkin-Stevens. Now, we had a change atop the college with the retirement of Dean Roland Potter in May 2013 after a 9-year tenure. Today, my guests are Dr. Steve Runge, UCA Provost, and Terry Wright, Interim Dean of the College of Fine Arts and Communication. We will talk about CFAC and what it means to the university as a whole, as well as its future. So be sure to join us when we return.
The University of Central Arkansas offers programs you can't find anywhere else in the state.
Thank you.
Like digital filmmaking, an education that's helped me enter film festivals, and intern at a local TV station. UCA's given me school pride I can call my own, and a community that feels more like a family.
Action.
UCA put me and my education front and center. Learn how at uca.edu.
Joining me now are Terry Wright, Interim Dean of the College of Fine Arts and Communication, and Dr. Steve Runge, UCA Provost. So welcome to Spotlight, gentlemen.
Always a pleasure to talk with you, Donna.
Thanks for the invitation.
Now, Terry, you've been here before, but
Yes.
Steve is here for the first time, so we'll just have a conversation. So
Great,
that's
great.
good. Now, Terry, first, start off with your background. I know you've got a variety of experiences that sort of prepared you to step into this role.
Yes, well, I think I was the Associate Dean of the college for about 6 years, from about 2000 to 2006. So being in the office wasn't new to me. See, I have advanced degrees in literature, and then I have a terminal degree in creative writing. So my background is in creative writing. That's my discipline, poetry primarily. I also am an artist. I make original digital art. I blog on art and digital art, fractal art. I was in forensics when I was in college. I did a debate tour of the East Coast, including Berkeley and UCLA. I helped found the West Coast, yeah, sorry. In some alternate university on the East Coast. Let's see, I helped found the community radio station, KBF, in Little Rock. I helped run the Poetry Slam, Little Rock Poetry Slam, for 2 years. I worked in journalism. I wrote record reviews at one time, and I was in a punk band, although that's probably more of the liability side of that.
I want to see that.
I have some recordings.
I
right.
bet.
At least we can hear it.
Yes.
Now, did you ever have aspirations of being dean?
No, not really. I was always curious. I did want to work in administration because I like making things happen, you know, and so that was exciting to me. I never really thought about being the dean, and when Bob Everding left, the first dean, Jonathan Glenn stepped in as the interim dean, and I thought about it then. I thought about applying, but I thought no. I'd been in the office for about 4 years at that point, and I thought no, I have some other things I want to do instead. But no, I was very interested in working with administration because it seemed as an avenue to me to be able to make things actually happen instead of just talk about them in some way. So
Now, Steve, you have a different sort of background. Give us yours.
Absolutely. My undergraduate degrees are from University of Wisconsin, Green Bay, so neither East Coast nor West Coast. Human adaptability, biology, and chemistry.
Okay.
Ohio State University for graduate school, PhD work in biochemistry and molecular biology. I came to UCA in 1991 as an assistant professor in the biology department. I've been a course coordinator for what is now called Principles of Biology 1, used to be Molecular and Cellular Principles. Full-time faculty for 12 years, department chair in biology for 6 years, dean of the College of Natural Sciences and Mathematics for 2.5 years, and I've been in the provost's office about 1.5 years.
So did you have aspirations of doing this administrative path when you got here, or?
Absolutely not. Well,
sense of theme here.
Yeah, and people that have followed me and know me know I've been an interim now 3 times and then moved into the permanent position. The first time I was asked to be department chair, I told them no. And because I'm a biochemist and I'm doing breast cancer research and still have that going on. I still have students working in my lab. And I wondered why in the world I would do something like that, because I was doing everything I wanted. I was teaching the classes I wanted to teach. I had my research lab going. I was working with the students, and I was having a great time. And I got asked to move into an administrative role, and I'll say to this day, I'm still having a great time. I'm just doing things that are way different than I expected.
Yeah, and there is a theme here, because when I took the Associate Dean's position some years ago, I said I would do it for 2 years. I was adamant about that. And then I did it for 6. I don't know how that happened. It just sort of got away from me before I even knew it.
Yeah, so it's an interesting thing. I wondered why, when I was so passionate about what I was doing, why I would want to change. And the bottom line is I like to, and very much echo what Terry said, I like to build things.
Yeah.
I like to build things with my hands. I like to build things intellectually. I like to build and grow and improve things, and that's what we get to do.
Yeah, working as an administrator is not theoretical. It's very tactile.
Sure.
You actually are in a situation where you can make things happen.
That's right.
And that's pretty exciting.
So we have a poet and a biochemist. Do you speak the same language?
I don't really think there's a dividing wall between the arts and the sciences myself. I think that they're both engaged in the same thing. They're looking at the world in new ways. They're seeing with fresh eyes. They're bringing things into being that weren't there before, whether it's a new poem or a scientific breakthrough. I would use somebody like J. Robert Oppenheimer, who, of course, is arguably the most important nuclear physicist of the last century. But this is a guy who went to Harvard. He majored in the classics. He spoke multiple languages, and he wrote 3 books of poetry. I mean, so I reject your paradigm. I think there's a synthesis between the arts and the sciences.
Yeah. Well, in fact, I was here and Terry was here when we had a College of Arts and Sciences.
That's correct.
And we're going to talk about that, yes.
Okay, and it was kind of a sad day when that broke up,
It
because
was,
if
yeah.
you look back at the connections between the arts and the sciences and people like Michelangelo, who were
good example.
Renaissance artists, but also scientists and gross anatomists, and used those artistic skills to do the science, which at some level was taboo at that time. So we need to make sure that we don't build walls between the disciplines.
Right, and I seem to recall on that day when that college broke up, I went to a meeting in which the deans had put a string of police tape down the center of the hall we were in, and the arts people had to sit on one side and the scientists had to sit on the. You remember that?
That was Arts and Letters breaking
Oh,
up.
that was Arts and
That
Letters.
was Arts
breaking
and
up.
Letters.
That was Gary Starks.
That was the liberal arts and the fine
Oh,
arts.
so, well, I had the wrong event, but that was also a sad day. I mean, I don't know why we have to break into these parsecs and cubicles when I think we're all sort of engaged in the broadest sense of discovering new things and exciting new ways to approach whatever our
The
discipline.
dean's meeting when Arts and Sciences broke up is when Dr. Dombeck stood up and was asked the question of his greatest accomplishment of many years as dean.
That's right.
And he said he survived 3 presidencies.
That's right.
And that was it. So,
How many have you survived, Steve?
yeah, well, I'd have to count. So.
Okay, so you both survived lots of incarnations of what we have today in our college. So Terry, you've been here since '83, and Steve, you've been here since '91. So tell us about how the College of Fine Arts and Communication was formed. I mean, you were both on campus. You were watching, even though you were not a part of it, and you were a part of it.
Well,
Tell us
apparently I didn't go back far enough.
You didn't go back far
Didn't go
enough,
back
so.
far enough, but it was there was a College of Arts and Letters, and Gary Stark.
when you came here.
No, when I came here, it was arts and
that was the immediate predecessor to College
Right.
of Fine
That's
Arts.
Arts and Sciences broke up. Natural Sciences and Mathematics was formed, and Arts and Letters.
Okay.
correct.
Okay.
So
Okay.
Terry was in Arts and Letters at that time.
That's right.
Okay.
And that was the incident when that broke up, that the police tape was down the center of, I think it was the music recital hall, as I recall. And so
Wow.
then the arts people were on one side and the letters people were on the other side. And it was just sort of sad to see that
Yeah,
there was this separation. It was meant as a joke,
Sure.
but it was a kind of bittersweet joke, though.
So why form a separate college? Why?
Well, I think I don't know, I'm speculating, but the
Sure.
university had grown, and some of those colleges were getting, the Arts and Science College was getting just positively unmanageable for one dean to do it. And I think as the university grew so much that the responsibilities became so large that it had to be sort of parsec down a bit.
I think a big part of it too was trying to gain some focus on some of those individual disciplines.
Yes.
When you had a college as big as Arts and Sciences that spanned all the the lab sciences, social sciences, fine arts, liberal arts, all in one big cluster. It was really difficult to get that focus on something that we're trying to do now, is looking at programs of distinction. But it was so broad that it was really hard to see the field
Sure.
when you had that many groups.
And in some degree, I think the allocation of resources is easier if you have disciplines that are alike in some ways, in terms of trying to figure out, needs for those particular disciplines. If they're alike in some ways, the resource issues, in my opinion, are a little easier.
Yeah. It was challenging even on the faculty side when people were looking at promotion and tenure, and
Oh, sure.
and you had biochemists and mathematicians looking at poetry and
Right,
music,
right.
and that was challenging.
Yes.
So
Right, right.
there was a lot to it.
So give us a little history of the dean's position. CFAC was formed, and Dr. Bob Everdeen came in.
He was the first dean. Yes.
Tell us, and you worked with him as,
I did,
as associate
yes.
dean.
In fact,
Tell
I
us-
worked with all three of the previous deans. Robert Everding was the first, Jonathan Glenn was an interim, and then Rollin Potter was the most recent.
So tell us about Dr. Everdeen.
Well, he had a theater background, and I think his accomplishment was in simply getting the college off the ground and understanding the distinctions between the disciplines and the makeups of the departments within the college. I mean, that was something he had
And
to
that
sort
was
of
what
shuffle.
year?
Oh, I want to say
No, 94 or 96, I believe. It was before I got
I
here.
don't remember.
93 is when arts and sciences broke up.
Probably 96
So-
then.
So it probably was about 96,
Yeah, I
97
guess
is what
so.
I'm thinking.
That'd
Okay,
probably be around.
okay.
Correct.
Okay,
I came in 2000 into the office, so
okay.
it must have been about 96.
And when he left, we had an interim for a year while they did a search, and Dr. Jonathan Glenn. What did Jonathan bring to the program? He's now associate provost.
I really enjoyed working with Jonathan, actually. He, as Steve knows, he's a very amiable guy. He's got a great sense of humor. He's very much a detail person. And he entered that role with great relish. I mean, there was some concern because, excuse me, he was in the humanities and he wasn't either.
English professor.
He was an English professor,
professor.
and but he wasn't in the arts or communications, but he really embraced that role, and I had a great time working with him. I think he did a fantastic job myself.
Jonathan's a very, very solid administrator and is willing to help anyone with anything.
Yeah.
So
He's like you. He's been interim of a lot of things.
that's
as
right,
well.
and that's when he stepped into that role, and
Uh-huh.
he remembers it very fondly. He really enjoyed that time.
Yeah, he's very much a problem solver too. I mean, Jonathan would give you the, I was going to say shirt, but suit off his back if he could
Yeah.
help you out.
Yeah.
So
And then Dr. Potter came in 2004.
Correct,
And he
yes.
has had the longest tenure
Yes,
of anyone in the college.
he has.
So what did he bring?
I think he
Now,
was.
you were still in the office when he.
I was. I
so he-
was in the office for the first 2 years of his tenure there. I think he was a visionary and very much a builder. If Robert Everding had the responsibility for establishing the sort of the core foundation for the college, Rollin Potter built the buildings. He had the vision and the foresight to imagine what the college could be, and it just grew exponentially under him. And a lot of the programs we have today are to his credit. I'd also give a plug, however, for Associate Dean Gail Seymour. She played a lion's role in that too, especially in terms of the Artist in Residence program and her grant making and her work with the community and Arts Fest with Conway. But Dean Potter was a visionary, and he built it to what it is.
I mean, that was one of the things I'll take off on that, is that in terms of something that's very, very important for a fine arts college is the community connection.
Yes.
Dr. Potter was a master at building those connections. He was the first dean at UCA to have an advisory board that was built up of community members. He had the vision for the Shakespeare Theater,
Yes.
which, as everybody knows who's been to the productions, are first-class productions that we're working on now to see if we can expand those out to the state, broader than just Conway
He
and
had a
Little
good
Rock.
sense for things that would serve the college well. I mean, when the Oxford American was sort of in trouble, he folded it into the college, and that has served us well. Just incidents like that.
Well, speaking of his connections, I remember I came here in 1999, and you didn't know anyone in the other departments within the college. And when
Right.
after Dr. Potter came in, we had, convocations with the
Yes.
whole college. We now are able to do interdisciplinary work and do and just reach across. And I think that he was a master at that.
He thought it was important that the faculty talked to one another and knew the staff and had those kind of conversations across the disciplines.
Yeah. Well, even outside of the college, I'll give you one example of something we started a year ago at UCA. Was the EPIC Residential College,
Right.
with the E being entrepreneurship. So that wouldn't be something that you would naturally think that the Fine Arts College would be a part of, but that was formed as a collaboration between College of Business, College of Natural Sciences and Mathematics, and College of Fine Arts and Communication. So he was willing to step outside of those traditional boundaries and help make those things happen.
What's his legacy?
Well, his legacy, I think, if nothing else, is that he put the fine arts first. We'll talk about the fine arts. He put them on the map. I'm biased, of course, but I happen to think we have the best fine arts programs in the state. And I think before he was in office, that might have gone to Fayetteville, or people might have thought of as Little Rock as this sort of cultural center, but that's not true anymore. I think our music program is recognized as the best in the state. If you go on Wikipedia, the longest entry on Wikipedia in academics is the theater program, for example. We have terminal graduate degrees in creative writing, and we have the only digital filmmaking program in the state. We have the only linguistics program in the state, getting into communication. So I think that's part of his legacy, is that he has put us on the map in terms of those disciplines in a way that they never were before.
Yeah. Strong academic programs that are embedded in that college that are intricate to the functioning of the community. So as we've already talked about, those are the things that the college does very well.
I was stunned when he told me he was retiring. I mean, he said to me, "Don't be mad," but so what was your reaction?
Well, I think a lot of people were surprised. I think his staff was surprised. If you knew him, though, I mean, I knew him, and I knew that he had been talking about retiring probably in the spring of 2014. And I don't know the circumstances exactly, but I know that he'd sold his house and a place had opened up in Chicago, and so it looks to me like he just pushed the timeline up. But it was abrupt.
Yeah, it was a very short timeline. I was very surprised. The only inkling that I had that anything was happening was that his house was for sale.
Yeah.
And when I talked to him, he told me that the exact same thing, that they were selling their house, they were planning for a spring 14 move, go back to the Chicago area, northeast Illinois, but their house sold very quickly and they accelerated their plan.
Yeah, I think so.
So you spoke about the short turnaround. How do you make a decision? I mean, that was what would we have, a month, 5 weeks, and then
We
you
had about 4 or 5 weeks.
Yeah, that's right.
So how do you replace him in that time?
That was something that, well, the first thing I did was ask Dr. Potter for some names, and I started to generate some names, and I was also very fortunate that Jonathan Glenn, who works in the Provost office, was very familiar with the college.
Yes.
So we generated lists, and I started comparing names, and I had one meeting with Dr. Potter to talk about it, and I just started doing some homework, and I started making phone calls and meeting with different people, and the name that rose quickly to the top of the list was Terry Wright.
And I don't think y'all knew each other.
We
I
did
mean,
not.
vaguely.
We had met just
briefly
like
at
2
a
weeks.
reception for Norb Shedler.
Like 2 weeks before.
Right.
Wow.
And I had Steve's daughter in a creative writing class, and she'd shown me some of her art, and I was very interested in it. And I asked him, and we talked about that a little bit, and he said, "I have some more in my office." And I said, "Well, I'd love to come by and look at it." So I did, and we went by and talked about it. And then I think Dean Potter resigned like 2 days later or something.
Yeah,
and then I got another call from the provost office. "Can you come meet with the provost?" And I said, "Well, sure." And I thought I was going in to look at art. And as the conversation went on, I literally said, and I'm embarrassed, but I literally said, "Is this a job interview?" And it was. And it was. It was.
So what did you see in him that made you, I mean, besides the fact that he'd been around?
Well,
in
he
the
had
office?
experience, but a lot of things is that experience with UCA, the time in the dean's office, honesty and integrity, and an ability to be very direct and to, we, in a very short period of time, were able to develop a communication rapport that doesn't always come naturally. As we say, I mean, we knew each other for about 2 weeks, and that developed very quickly.
Yeah, I agree. It did.
And it's this working relationship and the ability for me to have confidence in somebody who's going to lead one of our colleges, to know that I can trust their judgment, that they're going to go out and do the right thing, and I have that in Terry.
And I have to say, I was very impressed with Steve, that I could tell he was a person of integrity and high ethical standards, and that was very important to me. And so I knew I could trust his judgment, and I sensed in him that he didn't want me to say what he wanted to hear. He wanted me to say what I really thought, because that was the only way he could operate, is if he knew what was actually going on and what the situation was. And I really respected that.
Well, I must say that when I left in May, it was like, what are we going to come back to? And we've been very, very pleased with Terry so far.
So
So don't let us down.
Well, so far, right? You know, but and one of the things that's really important, and I really value this, and Terry and I have had opportunity to do some things that require some very close collaborative decision making.
Yes.
And some consultative decision making. And Terry will come over to my office, or we'll meet, and we'll have to deal sometimes with some things that are tough.
Yeah.
And we always find a good landing spot, and that's exactly the way it should work.
That's great. That's
Another
great.
thing I think a lot of people don't know about Steve is because they see him in the provost office, furrowed brow, you know, the weight of the world on him and stuff. But he has a great sense of humor. He has this really quick wit and really wry sense of humor. A lot of people don't know it, but I really appreciate that about him too.
You would.
Oh, of course I would. Yes.
Yeah, I think he got those characteristics as
Yeah,
well. So.
I agree.
Yeah.
So Terry, you've done it. You've been here since 1983. You hadn't really, I mean, I assume you never expected to be in this position. Why did you take it?
Never. Why did I take it? That's what I asked myself.
And your wife asked you too.
My wife asked me too. Why do I take it? I don't know. I guess I took it because I've been here a long time, and I care about the university, and I care about the college, and a lot of the programs that are in the college now up and running are things that I helped design in some way. And the college was in trouble, and I thought I could at least step in temporarily and keep things going. And people knew me, so it wouldn't be completely unfamiliar or alien or whatever. And that would allow the college to stabilize until a new dean could be searched for. And it was sort of one of those things where I know it's temporary out there somewhere, so I see this end date and this notion of, you can do anything for a while.
Well, that's right.
That's right. So,
Says the one who has been.
Well, that's right. But one of the drawbacks, though, is when you have somebody like Terry, who is such a gifted instructor and
Right,
teacher
right.
and mentor and all the things that we all get into this business to do.
right.
It's one of the reasons why I keep my research lab going, is
Yeah.
because that's why we got into this business.
Right.
And I can tell you, with my daughter having been one of Terry's students, is that she's been summarily unhappy with me
Yeah.
ever since
There's
I made this.
Been a rift in the
decision.
family there because of this
And I
decision.
hear about it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
because she wanted to take a couple more classes from Terry.
And I got to say, the worst thing about taking the position has been that I really miss my students, and I
can
love
see that.
teaching, and I like my students. I like working with especially young artists, young poets, and that energizes me as an artist, and I do miss that very much. I miss my students.
Is the College of Fine Arts and Communication, I mean, I know we're different, but are we more different than any of the other colleges from each other, or we're sort of an odd combination of artists and communicators, and do we, where do we fit?
Well, I mean, there's the other colleges on campus have some interesting mixes.
Yeah.
The largest college is Health and Behavioral Sciences,
Right.
and they do everything from
Right.
interior design to psychology and physical therapy and nursing, and they'll, broad array of programs. So, you're always, and I think that's a good thing. You
Yeah.
don't want to have, 77 programs and 77 departments and 77 colleges. You need to keep that synergy going. So
And if we are odd in a way, it's what I tell the students at
Eccentric.
Fairfax Day.
Eccentric.
eccentric.
Yeah,
It's what I tell the
eccentric,
students
yeah.
at Fairfax Day. We're different in the sense that we're the makers, we're the creators, that we make stuff from nothing all the time. That without us, there wouldn't be anything in the museums, the libraries would be empty, the movie theaters would be quiet, there'd be no speeches, there'd be no newspapers, there'd be no blogs, no Game of Thrones, no Breaking Bad, no Twitter, no Facebook, because the makers, the creators have to make that. And so in that sense, it's not like, and I'm not making a value judgment, understand, it's not like you study the past as in history or something. You don't have something, and then all of a sudden you do have something. And in that sense, I suppose, we're different, although I just gave an earlier analogy of the sciences operate the same way. There isn't this knowledge, and then all of a sudden there is, because of the work of the scientist who followed through the process and explored the theorems, and if it's the mathematician. So I mean, there are those similarities, but we are a college of where there's nothing, and then all of a sudden you make something, and it takes a very, maybe eccentric, but it takes a very special kind of individual who's comfortable with having chaos and then giving it form. You know?
Eccentricity is not always bad.
No.
But here's the thing, in terms of that, what I was talking about, the synergy between the colleges, and even when you have maybe an eclectic mix of departments and programs, they influence each other, and they influence the people, and they influence the community in ways that helps change the culture. So I'll give you an example, and this is a funny thing, I think I told you this story, but different people we influence each other in different ways. And if you ever come to my office, you'll see I have a shrine to the Green Bay Packers.
Yes,
So,
yes, he does.
so that's a really
He
important
grew up
part.
in Green Bay. About how far from the
15-minute
stadium?
bike ride
Yeah,
from
Of
Lambeau
course, of
Field.
course,
So
okay.
that's
That's
it's
right.
pretty
It
important.
literally is a shrine. It's devotional.
It's very, yes, Sunday morning, it's right there. So, but a couple of weeks ago, and an influence from the chairman of our art department, Jeff Young, and his wife, Laura Young, who works in my office as associate provost, had told us, my wife and I, about an art show down at the Arkansas Arts Center on Saturday that they went to, and Sunday was the last day. So we went to this art show, and it was fantastic. It was a visiting show from England, and I was telling Terry, I said, I'm sitting there looking at this one particular Rembrandt, and it's a self-portrait, and I'm really studying it, and I get a text message from my oldest daughter. She's like, "Are you watching the game?" and I'm like, "No, I'm not watching the game. I'm in an art gallery looking at paintings."
What's wrong with you?
What's wrong with me? Something's happened. There's been a paradigm shift, so something's gone wrong. But it was really kind of a moment where you realize that, wow, you're doing other things too. And I managed to get home and watch the fourth quarter, which was kind of ugly because the 49ers took the show. But anyhow, I mean, those are the things.
But Rogers was on his way to setting a record, and all of which you probably missed.
Yeah, there's that.
So have we stabilized? I mean, it's only been a few months since, you said.
It depends on when I look on my email whether I think we stabilized on it. But I mean, it's not the college isn't in smoldering ruins. Our budget's okay. I think we're okay.
From your
I think
perspective.
so.
Yeah.
We had a fall event for the college on Monday night that I attended with my wife, and it was great. And really enjoyed it. Faculty presentations were fantastic, ranging from literature to the pinnacle brass and original composition, the music, and it was fantastic. And I thought it was a great kickoff for the year for the college, and I think things are good. I think things are very, very good.
So I guess two-part question. What do we do well, and what can we improve on?
Well, I think, as I was saying earlier about the fine arts, I mean, I think we're on the map, and I think The connections with the community are going well. I think the public appearances series, for example, is continuing to get name recognition. We're selling more tickets than ever and selling out. You know, I think we do have that conversation thanks to what Dean Potter did within the college. I think our academic programs are strong. The graduate programs that have popped up are some indication of that. So I think we're doing all of that well.
I agree. I think that the thing that we've really done well is we've stayed true to our mission. And our mission is to provide outstanding educational opportunities for our students. And when we stay true to our mission, that means that the college is going to be successful and the university is going to be successful. When we talk about programs of distinction, we're looking at things that set us apart. We've got some things that are new. The MFA in creative writing is still in its infancy, but the program is growing. The word that I'm getting back out of that program is that it is going to be exceptional. The MFA in digital film, which Terry has already talked about, is another one that is programs that we can showcase. And those are the things that are going to set this institution apart. Those are very visible. That's one of the things about fine arts and communication is that these programs are extremely visible,
Yes.
and they should be.
Yeah, and I would follow up on that and say, you know, I mean, we've been through some tough times. I'd like to think they're behind us now, some bad publicity. But in all that
As a
time,
university.
Institution.
as an institution, not as a college. But throughout all those times, there was always good news coming out of our college to let people know we're still here, we're still doing things. We have programs of distinction, and we're celebrating the arts, and we have performances and recitals and gallery exhibits and literary readings and film festivals, and that goes on in spite of whatever chaos that might be on the periphery.
You know, things we've been able to maintain, even when we got into financial difficulties as an institution. The best example of that, I think, is the Reynolds Performance Hall. And the series of events that we bring into the Reynolds Performance Hall. My undergraduate institution has a similar performance hall, and when the economy put the squeeze on their budgets, they shut it down. They shut down their...
Completely.
Well, they didn't shut it down completely. They still had student performances, and they used it for that. But in terms of visiting artists and things coming in, they basically shut that down, and just this year they're trying to restart that program. Well, we never stopped because we valued that, and we were willing to put the resources into
And another thing we do
things.
really well is our Artist in Residence program. I would put that up against anyone in the country, that we actually bring artists in all of the arts disciplines, and we insist that not only do they give some kind of a public performance, but they sit down and work individually with all of our students that are in that particular major or minor. And I don't know of anyone that has that kind of sort of one-on-one activity between major artists and with a capital A of all stripes that actually get to sit down and meet with students. And that excitement when you see that is just palpable. I remember when in my area when Neil Gaiman, the writer, was here in Reynolds, and the place was packed, and I literally sat there till 3 o'clock in the morning as a line snaked out of Reynolds out the front door as people would talk with him and sign books, and he made a point to stop and talk to every single person. And then at 3 o'clock in the morning, he was staying in Little Rock. I took him back to Little Rock, and I said, "Aren't you exhausted?" He said, "No, I'm hungry. Let's go get a steak at Denny's." I'm like, okay. You know. So there I was with Neil Gaiman at 3 in the morning, 4 at that point, at Denny's getting a steak.
So what do we need to work on? What can we improve on?
Well, there's things that we're building.
Yes.
And we have programs, and I'm going to focus on Shakespeare Theater a little bit.
Okay.
Because Shakespeare Theater is something that's been very successful. Events held at UCA, at Hendrix College, in Little Rock. And it's a program that we think can go from something that's special to something that's being truly exceptional. And it's one of the things, and the president has spoken very eloquently about this in terms of his vision of where he wants to see this Shakespeare Theater go. And it related to an experience that he had when he and his wife were on a trip in Montana and had a Shakespeare troupe come in, and they were out in the middle of nowhere. And hundreds of people came out of nowhere to watch this play,
Yes.
watch this performance. And we are going to work very, very hard to take what now is the Central Arkansas performance and turn that into an Arkansas.
Truly live up to its name.
We're going to live up to its name. It's not just Central Arkansas. We're going to try to bring it to other parts of the state, and I think it's going to be a huge success.
I think there's other things, that are going on in the college that are just in their infancy and starting to develop. I was just talking to Bruce Hutchinson out in the hallway a second, and Chris and Scott Metter are working on like 3D films, and as Bruce talked to me, I just thought, this is just fantastic. Who else is doing this, and it's those sorts of things, a creative writing program. But beyond the programs that are young and in their infancy, we have room to explore other avenues within the existing programs. I'd like to get more first-rate artists into the Baum Gallery, for example. I'd like to bring in more artists to the music program. There's always room to expand those things and aim higher to bring in those artists. Of course, if we're talking 5-10 years down the road, I don't know how long you're going out here. Eventually, of course, I'd like to get a performing arts center for the college to replace Snow.
And that's on the list.
And it's on the list.
Okay. So I guess sort of 3 questions. Goals for the interim year. I mean, I think we've stabilized.
Survival?
We've survived for you.
All right.
Oh, realistic goals. So.
I'm going to qualify that one. And it goes back to one of your earlier questions, is that when I interview people for a position like this, and I interviewed Terry and some others, and this related to my experience having served in an interim capacity 3 times, there's one really important question that has to be answered.
I know what it is, too.
And it's a question about, are you going to be a placeholder, or are you going to do the job?
And what was his answer?
He's going to do the job.
Right. I don't
And-
want the job if I'm just
We don't want you to have
if
that.
I'm just
And-
warming a chair. I don't
Well,
want the job.
and that's, in my mind, the most important question, because if you're not going to do the job, then we're going to find someone else.
Right.
I mean, that's just our reality. So,
Yeah.
Good.
I had 2 interviews with Steve. The first one I told him all the reasons I didn't want the job. So you recall. And then I made another appointment, and I thought, well, that probably wasn't the right approach. And so I went in the next time and said, here's all the reasons I want the job.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
What about 10 years out? Where do you see us? Well, I mean, we are sort of I've heard the
I don't know,
analogy.
Terry, you going to be the dean 10 years from now? Is that in the cards?
I'll leave that question to my successor. Good luck to you, whoever you may be.
I mean, we are sort of the front. I mean, I've heard this. We're the front porch of the university in many ways.
That's an interesting, and I like that analogy. I'd like to continue to think, if that's the question, that we are a welcoming front porch. It's the kind of place where you would have come, sit down, enjoy conversation, intellectual stimulation, aesthetic experiences. If nothing else, I'd like to keep us through the next 10 years in being in that forefront position as the school that has the finest programs in both communication and the fine arts. I mean,
All right. He's being too humble. Let me tell you about some of the things we've talked about.
Okay.
All right. So, and this relates to all the things we've already talked about in terms of educational programs and performances and outreach and community engagement and all of those parts that play into, and I'm going to correct me if I make a mistake here,
Okay.
is establishing us in the model of being like in Oxford, Mississippi.
Yes.
I like that.
All
Yes.
right. So,
Yes.
and
Yes.
the University of Central Arkansas can play a huge role in that.
Yes.
The College of Fine Arts and Communication
Yes.
will be central
Yes.
in doing something like that.
Yes, I know what he's talking about because
Okay.
we've had this
We've had this-
conversation.
that's
that,
right.
I really passionately believe this, that the environment is in place here in Conway at UCA to really have a true kind of college university dedicated to the arts. Certain things have to happen, have to fall into place. Maybe a few more graduate programs, maybe the city needs to go wet, I don't know, whatever. But I mean, some things need to happen. Some things need to happen to.
Is that a pitch?
That was just, that's not a judgment. It's just prognostication. But if the dominoes would fall into place, this could be Oxford. It could be Madison, Wisconsin. And only UCA is sort of situated for this college town environment. Fayetteville wants to be that, and maybe at one time it was that, but it's not anymore. There's just too much growth and development there, if you'll pardon my expression. ULR is a commuter campus. Jonesboro doesn't have the central location we do. We have the central location, and we really are a sort of a pure kind of liberal arts experience. We're the teachers' college. That's what our history is.
Right, and here to put some other parts into that, and it's why it's important that the College of Fine Arts and Communication is part of this EPIC residential college, this entrepreneurship and public scholarship, community engagement. And we have a vibrant startup community in Conway, in Central Arkansas. We've got not only UCA, but we've got Hendrix, we've got CBC.
The city of colleges is accurate.
And we have all of the parts to launch into something like that, to actually realize that vision.
I like that. Now, Steve, we have 5 interim deans among our 7 colleges.
Yes,
now, that's a
ma'am.
difficult. I'm sure that's a difficult
It
position for
presents
you
some
to be.
challenges,
Yes,
there's
it
no
is.
doubt about
But
that.
lots of fresh blood.
That's
Well,
right.
that's true,
A lot
that's
of fresh
true.
ideas.
So, and I think you said at the beginning of the year that there would be 3 searches this year. Can you
That's
tell us
correct.
which deans will be searched this year?
We're searching and initiating searches right now for the College of Health and Behavioral Sciences, College of Natural Sciences, Mathematics, and the Graduate School. So those are the 3
Okay.
that we're going to do this year.
So Terry, I guess that
Well,
I guess your 1 year may turn into
that's why he already knows he signed up for 2, so we're at least.
I do not know that.
I don't know that I even asked him. I think
He
it
hasn't even
was.
asked me. We're gonna have to negotiate this.
It's kind of like Terry. I don't think that 1 year is going to cut it. So I don't remember exactly how the conversation went.
I
but
don't remember this conversation.
He
at
didn't
all.
say no. So there you go.
Well, Terry, after 2 years as interim, would you be interested in the permanent position, do you think?
You know, I've learned from experience, Donna, that I don't burn my bridges. I've learned from experience that that's never a good idea. And, you know, never say never. But I don't know. I'm in a really good creative groove at this point in my life. I'm in my 60s. I have 1 book I just finished and another one I'm writing, and I want to make more art. And if there's a downside, and Steve knows this as well as I do, that you know, it's a time thing. I mean, as an administrator, you work long hours and nights and weekends sometimes, and it's just a time thing. It's difficult to be away from your personal disciplinary work. So I don't know. I don't want to make a commitment on camera today because I miss that, you know,
Yeah, I
and
can see
I
that.
miss that. I guess I worry, you know, I don't have that. I can see that intimations of immortality thing. I don't have that many years to produce work, really, at this point in my life, and it's important to me. So I don't know.
We'll cross that bridge in a year when we get ready to make some decisions about the next dean of the college.
Yeah.
Okay, well, it's been a good conversation. I appreciate both of you being here, and I hope you'll come back.
Yeah,
Thank
it
you,
was
Don.
very
It's been a
enjoyable.
pleasure.
Appreciate
It's been a
it.
pleasure.
We'll be back in a moment.
The University of Central Arkansas offers programs you can't find anywhere else in the state,
Thank you.
like digital filmmaking, an education that's helped me enter film festivals, and intern at a local TV station. UCA's given me school pride I can call my own, in a community that feels more like a family.
Action.
UCA put me and my education front and center. Learn how at uca.edu.
For more information about the programs and people featured on the show, call the College of Fine Arts and Communication at 501-450-3293 or check out our website, www.uca.edu/CFAC, and be sure to like us on Facebook. Please join us again next week on Spotlight.